interested in like the concept of being the only child and how only children they develop differently. I've been interested in the developmental psychology, I guess, and I feel like only children have character traits like maybe they're more sort of attention seeking, maybe they are less socialized, maybe they they compete more for validation because they're the sort of focus of their parents. I think there's a lot of different variables that come with it, and think of that and I compare it to having siblings. So I thought I'd start by like, if you had any thoughts about this, I mean, it sounds like maybe a bigger statement, but do only children develop worse than people with siblings?
Yeah, it's an interesting area, I think, and I guess I do have some thoughts about it because I have a number of like half siblings, right, where one parent had previous children with another partner, and my other parent had a previous child with like another guy, and my sister like genetically is a half sister, but I lived with her growing up, so she feels like she is my sister. Do you know what I mean? We don't really give a shit about that half when it comes to genetics. But I've always said, because of our age gap, I'm kind of spiritually an only child, I guess, because me and my sister have an 8-year age gap, right? And I think maybe there's a gender like factor in this as well. You know, we were interested in different things, so it's like the age gap plus the gender difference just meant we didn't really hang out. Like maybe we'd talk at meal times and we talk about school or whatever, and we still chat now when I see her and stuff. But like those like play years, let's say, when I was like 4, she was 12, 13, and was like at secondary school and was dealing with that and had different friends, and we're just like, there's different worlds. So I always remember as a kid when I was at my mum's place, like where I was most of the time, I was playing by myself. And I think that has molded the way that I am now. I mean, this is anecdotal data and we're just playing around with ideas. There's nothing really sort of objective about this, but maybe that's why I'm so interested in like thinking deeply and stuff. And I find things so fascinating, or I'm good at just being alone with ideas and writing and reading and working on my sort of cognitive intellectual stuff, because as a kid I did have to do that. Like I remember playing with little Lego characters and making little voices for them and imagining battles and imagining confrontations and all this, but all of that is just me and my toys, you know. So to come back to what you said about like, is one better or worse? I think like most things, it's not black and white. It's many shades of grey. Are only children more lonely? I don't know the evidence on that, but just to make a gut assumption, I'd say probably yes. But do they have less, you know, I don't know, conflict at home between siblings? Maybe. Are they more introverted? Maybe. Are they better at working independently when they get older? Maybe. Now, I don't know any of the research on this. I'd be interested into looking into it, or if anyone has any thoughts in the comments or can contact us to talk about it, I'd be interested. But I think there are pros and cons to both sides, I guess is what I'm saying. Because then the only child, maybe there's a higher probability of being spoiled, right? They understand principles of sharing later in life, or less saliently. So yeah, what do you think? Well, I'll finish there and see your thoughts, and we'll go from there.
I think an overview is that I think when you have a sibling, you have someone to reflect things off, because I don't think you can do that as much to your parents, or maybe you can, but it's not the same. I think you touched on something interesting, that there are actually maybe benefits of being an only child, which I didn't think of before. Maybe they're going to be more creative because they spend longer staring at walls and not having that play, so they're in that isolation, they deal with it and they have those attributes. Although I do think generally, if I didn't have any siblings, I feel like I would be just less like aware of the world. It's like if I was with a brother, if I had a brother, then I would probably be more masculine, and I'd be hyper in tune with the male mind, and I wouldn't understand the female mind as much. And now that I have a sister, so I feel like to a degree I am a little bit in tune with the female mind, and obviously you got a mother as well. So I think those kind of energies, having that other person around, gives you an insight into the experience of the opposite gender.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I do feel like because like I grew up um, with just a sister and a mum, single mum. I am way more like in touch with my emotions than let's say the average 21-year-old guy. And I'm actually quite feminine in that way. Like I want to talk about feelings as soon as I experience them because I know that that's my route of dealing with things. Like I can't just bottle things up like a lot of like lads tend to do. And just to touch on that hypothetical you just posed there, I think that's a really good point, right? If me or you had an older brother, let's say 3 years older. I know I do. I kind of have those, my two half brothers, but I don't really see them loads and didn't see them loads as a teenager. But let's say I had a brother that was 2 years older than me. We both did, okay? That would have a huge impact because you'd be coming up into the world. And let's say when you're 6, they're 8. When you're 10, they're 12. When you're 14, they're 16. They're always like 2 steps ahead of you in life. And so you're always going to be comparing yourself to them. And there's going to be this natural competition, like masculine social hierarchy thing going on, which will like impact you because I've got friends who I think there's 2 sides to it. One is like they feel like they're always in competition with their brother, and it's like when their brother does one thing, they have to do it as well or more and add to it and add to it. But the other side of it is I know friends who have older brothers, and those older brothers act as like a safety for them. So they go to school, for example, and they know, oh, you're that person's brother from 2 years above, or if that brother can be like a backup, let's say, just in life, just a little guardian, a little protector type vibe. So I think it's complicated, and I think it depends on the dynamic, and I think it depends on the parenting style and the emotional environment of the household. All these things contribute together. But I don't think there's any circumstance that's like worse. I think it's about how you manage it. Whether you're an only child or you're one of 5 siblings or one of 7 or one of 2 or you're the same gender as your sibling or you're different. It's just it's case by case, I guess.
Yeah, I would agree that obviously it's the whole how the family deal with it all together. But I think there's just something in it that I just feel like more only children don't end up maybe as like as complete maybe.
Socially, they'd struggle.
I think you can tell when someone's an only child. And then I have thoughts like, well, is it immoral to just have one child? Because I would never want that really for myself. I feel like they'd have a lot more trouble being complete, and therefore they would need something to fill those incompletions because they're just less rounded human being for the general part.
Do you think that I give off only child energy?
No, I don't think so. I think you're more complete. Like,
I think
it doesn't come to mind.
I think I think the only large thing missing will be the immediate like social everyday stimulation of having a close sibling. But that you can always find things that fill that hole. If the kids are really social at school, they're seeing their friends from school every evening, or they do loads of clubs and stuff, and they're just active in the community, I feel like you might be okay. But I also think there are things, there's understanding what you want as an individual is perhaps easier as an only child, right? Because you don't have the constant like comparison with your sibling all the time. You are just you. You are just as you are in the world, and maybe you're influenced by your parents, like everyone, and society and media narratives, etc., etc. But there isn't that like your brother's 2 years older than you, and he by this age he was doing this. Like it's just like you can find your own way, maybe a little bit easier. I don't know. These are interesting discussions. And on the morality of having one child, sometimes it's not in your control. Sometimes there's fertility issues. Sometimes you try and it doesn't. Sometimes you have your first kid too old, and then it's difficult from that point. Sometimes one is enough for some parents. Like it's I think my overall like argument would be that everything outside of it is what outside of that particular circumstance is what determines the quality. Like how the emotional environment, the attachment style of that child, however they're socialized or not through whatever means, they're the things that really move the needle in terms of their development.
I think you make a very good point in that. That's what I'd say for you. You found things to fill that the only child hole. That's what I think I'd say for you. And I just thought of a question. When you said like only children are maybe more spoiled and stuff, what do you think about like the concept of spoiling your kids? For me, I feel like there's maybe I lean towards it being okay to spoil, especially if you have girls. But I don't like the idea of spoiling if I have boys. And maybe that's just the way I kind of perceive how uh, different or gender should be raised. But that's sort of what comes to mind for me.
Well, I'm interested to dig into that a little bit because I think a spoiled version of either like gender child is terrible. But I think generally it's dangerous because children need to understand what no means. And when they request anything and the answer is always yes, of course, yes, of course, yes, of course, yes, of course, then when they go out into the world and they get slapped with a no, someone rejects them, they don't get the job they wanted, they don't pass the exam they needed to pass, or just something just happens and the world hits them and says no. How are they going to like deal with that? They're not. They're going to blame the world. They're going to be entitled. It's terrible. Like the worst thing you can possibly do as a parent is spoil your kids. I really think. In fact, if you, it's almost like I've had these thoughts before. If you try and make your kids' upbringing as comfortable as possible to avoid traumatizing them, that in itself is a form of like messing them up because they're in this cushy like sunshine and rainbow world, and when they go out into the world and have to carve their own path, then they're just like swayed by all the storms. They can't weather the storms of life, so you don't set them up properly.